Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So you all know that a couple of weeks ago, I did a video about this young girl in Baltimore City, a 7-year-old girl who was shot in the back and severely injured. I talked about how this young sister was struggling for her life. And when I returned to Baltimore on this past Thursday, it came to my attention that this little girl passed away. Here you have a 7-year-old girl and her life is already snuffed out. She's been denied the chance to live out her dreams, the chance to go to school, the chance to get married, the chance to have a family, the chance to have a career, to have a life, snuffed out at 7 years old. And right now, no one has been arrested for this crime. The killer remains free on the streets of Baltimore City, free to kill more people, free to commit more crimes, and nobody is doing anything to turn this killer in, unfortunately. When I say nobody, I'm talking about the community. I'm not talking about the police or whatever. I'm talking about the actual community, the people who actually know who is responsible for this crime. Now, there have been some other developments in this case. The driver of the vehicle that the little girl was in has been under arrest. And just to back up for a second, this little girl, and her name is Taylor Hayes, she was shot while riding in the back seat of a vehicle. Now, the driver of the vehicle, again, has been placed under arrest. She was arrested because she had a loaded gun in the car. And this driver's name is Darnell Holmes, an African-American woman. She's 33 years old, if I recall correctly. She was arrested for having a loaded gun in the car, arrested for having heroin in the car, and for having a digital scale in the car. Now, this woman who was driving the car, I'm sure that she has some idea who was trying to kill her. She knows who shot into that car, but yet she will not cooperate with the police. I'm sure that there are people in that Southwest community in Baltimore who know who's responsible for this crime, but they will not come forward because of this don't snitch culture that has infected communities like Baltimore. And I understand why people have that type of culture, and I just want to talk about that for a second. And it's something that I've been talking about on this channel for the longest time, and that's these horrible relationships between the police and the community. I think that that's the main reason why you don't have cooperation between the community and the police, because people cannot trust the police, unfortunately. Too often, the police are the ones harassing black youth. The police are the ones brutalizing black youth. So for that reason, people don't have faith or confidence in the police. The police have framed black youth, made up complete lies, planted drugs on people. So a lot of people do not have much confidence in the police. And in addition to that, often the police fail to protect witnesses in Baltimore City. So I understand why many in our community do not cooperate with the police. And if the police really want to be about fighting crime, if the mayor and these people on the city council really want to solve crimes like this, if they really want to stop crime like this, they need to be about repairing the relationship between the community and the police department. And I know that the city of Baltimore is moving in that direction. We have a consent decree with the police departments, and we have regular reporting. We are moving in a direction of trying to repair the relationship between the police and the community. But there's more that we need to do. We must repair the relationship between the police and the community. Otherwise, killers like these killers here will be free to kill more people. So that's one thing. And then, another thing is, man, at some point, we have to take responsibility for our communities. We have to be the ones to have the courage to stand up to these people that commit these types of crimes in our community. Because if we don't, no one is safe. There are cases where you have innocent children simply walking around minding their own business, and they get hit with stray bullets in the streets of Baltimore and other cities like Baltimore. Nobody is safe as long as this kind of violence is allowed to continue, as long as people refuse to report these types of crimes and tell what they know. You know, as I said in the last video, there was a time when criminals had some kind of code. They had some kind of ethics that they lived by. Even though they were criminals, they knew that you don't kill children. They knew that you don't fire into a vehicle that has children in it. And it's my understanding that the windows on this vehicle were tinted, so perhaps these people didn't know that a child was in that car. But that doesn't make it any better, man. You know, it's just a shame that something like this will happen. And you will have a couple of vigils and stuff like that, and then people will continue with business as normal. This type of story doesn't get nationwide attention, unfortunately. And I'm going to go back to that in a second, but I want to raise a couple of other points in this video as well. You know, in addition to the fact that you have this driver who knows who's responsible for this crime but will not report it, you also have to raise the question of this. You know, why would somebody allow their kid to ride in such a vehicle where you have a drug dealer driving a vehicle with a loaded gun on her person? Why would you allow your daughter to be in the company of such people unless you're wrapped up into that lifestyle as well? And I wonder if the parents have any idea who committed this crime. And if they do, why don't they step forward? They need to step forward and, you know, report who was responsible for this crime. Somebody knows who committed this crime. And again, if we don't report on these kinds of crimes, if we allow this stuff to happen, then it can be our children who are shot next. If this had been a situation where a police officer killed this little girl, this would have been nationwide news, and rightfully so. And rightfully so. It would have received all kinds of attention on CNN, on MSNBC, on ABC, NBC. All the major networks would be covering this. There would be all kinds of protests and outrage. But because this young little girl was killed by a black person, probably, you know, by somebody in the hood, it doesn't receive the same kind of nationwide attention that it would have received. This is an outrage that you would have a 7-year-old girl gunned down like this. And this story is receiving attention in Baltimore, but it needs to receive nationwide attention. And that's part of the reason why I'm talking about it on this channel right here. We have to be just as outraged about these types of incidents of violence against our people as we are against police brutality. Now, I understand that there are complete differences between the two, and, you know, I resent when people try to raise, you know, the so-called black on black violence issue when they're talking about police brutality. I get that. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about the need to cherish human life. And there have been vigils and, you know, gatherings around this killing. People have expressed their outrage, but we have to do more as a community to stop this kind of senseless violence from occurring in our city, in Baltimore, and in your city. In your city, we need to stop this violence from happening. And that's why I commend groups like Baltimore Cease Fire. I commend groups like 300 Man March, groups that are trying to do something to make a difference in our community. And I encourage you all to support those groups, to join those groups. And if you're not able to join, at least financially support those groups or form your own group. We need the churches to do more to stop this violence that plagues our communities. The church needs to take on a bigger role in our community to address this type of problem, to address this violence that plagues our community. And we have to hold these elected officials accountable, man. If they're not able to get this violence under control, we need to vote them out of office. So I just had to get on here and follow up to this story. I mean, this is horrible, man. Here you had this adorable little girl. Her life is snuffed out. And perhaps she would still be here if her parents made better decisions, man. If they didn't have her in the company of a drug dealer, in the company of a criminal, then perhaps she would still be alive today. And we have to hold these parents accountable too for their poor decision making. So tell me what y'all think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.